I just reset my shelf this weekend. This
I
was
love
my
it.
version of lazy. I was like, the rain, whatever, just felt like cozy
Yeah.
inside. Yes, I could have been doing all kinds of coaching, business building. And I also was like, but,
You got to take the weekends off. Otherwise, like, how can you recharge?
this is a great point.
Right?
If I may, will you join me in a little commercial moment?
Yeah.
How is it for you being your own boss? Have you
Oh,
been a good boss to yourself, or do you emulate some of the worst bosses you've ever had?
oh
That's a
my gosh.
leading question.
Um, that's an interesting question. I think I'm an okay boss. Sometimes valuing rest and sometimes like working really late, so I have a small child. I mean, he's 4. That's still like kind of small. But then a lot of times after dinner, I'll work. And sometimes it feels like really good because it's like, oh, I had this idea, or I'm just like, wrapping up a project or whatever. But then sometimes I'm like, oh, gotta work and not excited. So it's like, when I feel excited, feels like good boss. And then when I'm not excited, I'm like, like,
Mm.
yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, just what you're saying is so. I guess what I'm mostly thinking about good boss, bad boss is, well, I'm leading a workshop in 2 weeks about being your own best boss. And my point is, how do you talk to yourself in those moments of, um, I'm excited or I'm not excited? I mean, excited is sort of easy in some ways. So
Yeah.
then the not excited part is like almost like not whether you're doing it or not doing it or what time it is, but how you're feeling about doing it. Like,
Yes.
ugh, I have to, or else somebody's going to be mad at me. Or, those kinds of pressury
Yes.
thoughts,
Obligation-y type of things.
obligation-y. And it isn't that sometimes something doesn't have to happen.
Right. Right.
And yet, somehow, something like um, receiving the privilege of doing that thing and not sort of blaming someone else for making you do the thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, as a basically solopreneur, you have to do a lot of the stuff. Some is more fun, obviously, than others.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like a balance, if there is such a thing.
Yeah. It's a
Right.
balance. And the workshop is really me trying to go over some pillars of like the things to watch out for, the things to build up your muscles for, so
Yeah.
that you see it, you recognize it. Because part of what's so crazy is it's easy to just not even realize you're being that bad boss to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and you just like use those same old extractive capitalism muscles
Yes.
that you've learned for
Yes.
survival all your
Yes.
life until
Yeah.
now, until you started your own thing.
Yeah.
Welcome, Coachinizer. Is that your people? Do you
Um.
know
Oh,
Coachinizer, Joy?
yes. Yes. Hi.
Welcome. Hello, hello. Jump into the chat, comments, questions, anything. Welcome, welcome.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining me in
Yeah.
that little commercial. But yeah, I think it's just a way to frame a lot of what I love to talk about with business owners is how do we lead ourselves in our own best, um, like the way we'll perform the best, right? So how do we lead a team well in this like aligned with my values way,
Mm-hmm.
if like internally we're like berating ourselves for what we didn't do and talking in fear based and scarcity based and punishment and black and white, right wrong kind of ways.
Leading a team is like so difficult. It's like not a skill that you're really taught. And I think even when I was in corporate, it was not like when you were promoted to a manager managing somebody, it's not like they gave you a training on like,
Totally.
oh, this is what it's going to be like when are managing a bunch of people, or this is what it's like when you manage an intern. They're just like, oh, were you an intern once? Okay, now you're just gonna
Here,
manage one.
jump in.
Like
Yeah,
you probably don't even get to like help choose them or really set their goals and parameters and stuff like that. So yeah.
totally. I know there is not a management school for most people in management. You
No.
just have to have been alive long enough, stayed long enough, and people just throw that at you. But this is my point. I don't think so. I, in my previous business, led a pretty big team, and I shouldn't say big team. I had a lot of people helping
Yeah.
me, but I had a team, a decent team, and it was a retail business, so that tends to need more people. And
Yeah.
I learned um, as I grew that what it took to lead them were the same things of being my own good boss. So that's kind of where I got this. I have a course teaching people how to go from solo to team. And then I realized that, you know, what it really starts with is how you lead yourself.
Yes.
And not to split yourself, but in a sense, you are the boss and you're the worker. And we come from land where we can talk to ourselves in that like kind of mean boss way, or
Yeah.
and I like I said, capitalism trains us to use a whip instead of a carrot or whatever, like stick
Right.
instead of
And I
carrot.
think also too what a lot in corporate, and I guess a lot if you're running your own business, running a team or having a successful team is like a very different skill set than actually like doing the job or
Yeah.
role of your company, right? Like I work with authors, like helping an author with their marketing is very different than trying to manage a team, you know, like I'm sure you
Yeah.
experience the same thing.
Yeah. But this is where, like I said, back to managing ourselves and
Yeah.
then using the same principles. So thank you for that little interlude,
Yeah, of
Stephanie.
course. Of
I didn't
course.
warn you about that. So thank you so much. Welcome, Carter Writer, another writer tribe.
Yeah.
How
Another
fun.
person from my community. Hi, Carter.
Hi, Carter. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. And do jump in the comments and ask questions for Stephanie.
Yeah.
Anything you need here. So, welcome everyone. I want everyone to meet Stephanie Moon, book sales consultant. Sorry, book strategist,
Book
sales
marketing consultant and
book
strategist.
marketing. I usually have it up, and I was like,
Yeah, no, it's okay.
wait, what is that? I know that you help authors sell more books, which is what I
Yeah.
put in the title of the
Yeah.
live.
Yeah.
I love that.
So my kind of company now is really my past is I worked at publishers in their marketing and publicity department. And so these were, I would say, medium and large publishers. And there's just like they work on a ton of books. Like as a one person, I worked on probably no less than 20 books a season. So that's a lot for one person.
Oh, yeah.
And what I would see a lot of is authors, you know, from the time you sign your deal with your editor till your book comes out, it can be like a long time. It can be probably at minimum 18 months to 3 years, 5 years, depending on how long it takes you to finish or write your book or whatever. I mean, 3 and 5 years is probably long. I would say 18 to like 30 months. Wait, one and a half to 2.5 years is probably like more where you're at. But I would see authors spend so much time and energy and effort writing their book, perfecting their craft, you know, just spending so much time on the book. And then when it came to marketing, they felt or treated the publisher's marketing department like more like an agency, or didn't understand like that the publisher wants you to do a lot of the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And so then there was a lot of times where the author had an amazing book and then their marketing kind of fell flat because they didn't know how to self-promote. They didn't know how to talk about themselves. They didn't know how to like leverage their relationships that they had built. They didn't know that they should be building relationships. They, you know, there was so much that like kind of wasn't happening when could have happened to like make their book more successful, basically. So I would see that and it would be heartbreaking because it's like people would spend so much time writing the book and then just like the second half of publishing is marketing and selling, and they just didn't know how to do this. And so that's like why I started my business. So I could help authors do that. So you could get another book deal. So you could sell your books. You could help people. So you could tell people your story.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I mean, so I used to sell a lot of books in my children's store, and I loved,
Oh,
well, one, I loved going to the book rooms, the book sales rooms in LA for LA Gift Show is where
yeah.
I used to go twice a year. And I did a lot of crossover because that was kind of my brand. Like things that are for adults are also for children, things that are for children are also for adults. And I tried
Yeah.
to look for those kinds of items. But yeah, I think that sales is its own
Thing.
separate little thing, and what authors just want to get that book out into the world, but really they also want to be paid. I mean, it's sort of
I mean,
the bigger picture, a dream to be paid for this book, right?
and like as you talk about being paid, it's like, okay, so you get an advance for your book, and it's split up in many payments. It's not like you get the whole chunk at once. And then also you don't earn royalties until your book earns out. So you might never, like, I think only 25% of all books in publishing earn out. So only 25% of authors are earning royalties. And
Wow.
you can only earn royalties if you're selling a lot of books, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and you'll only get another book deal if your first book did relatively well.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, I just can see how many people have the dream and you're
Mm.
giving everyone a lot more reality. So
Yeah. Yes.
it's so I mean it does feel almost like behind the curtain, right? Behind the
Yeah.
curtain because publishing is such a it feels sort of like rarefied air, right? Like
I mean, so that's what's so crazy to me is that that's what people say to me. But then since like that's really like where I worked for so long and this like my expert area, I'm like, of course everybody knows this, So I'm excited to kind of see if we have time for questions, like what questions people have. Cause
yeah.
to me, it feels like, oh, obviously you don't earn any more money unless your book earns out, but I think a lot of people don't know that.
No, we just see the dream on the glossy cover on the
Oh
outside.
gosh. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that I also talk about too, like that idea that authors have of like, oh, this is what my dream author life is like. So they think of like, oh, if I write a book, my marketing, my life is now going to be like Sarah Jessica Parker in Sex and the City. I'm going to have a big party. I'm going to go on a tour. I'm going to like get all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, if you are very well known, you have a platform, your book is good, you have a lot of strategy behind you. But like for most people, it's not that. And then I think they're like, it's also kind of like setting the expectation. Then they get very disappointed that it's not that. But um it's like honestly, it's not that for most people.
Yes. Welcome, Squashed Goomba. Put questions in the comments, please. Join us, join the conversation. So what I was just picturing is like you might meet an author or so they've already written a book by the time they work with you or no?
So it depends. So definitely, well, when I worked at the publishers, they were, already in contract. They already had a deal. Now I'm working with people both who have a book already and who are still working on one, because I think that more and more authors are realizing like, oh, they got to do some marketing themselves if they want to make this like a business. And it is a business if you want to make money from it. If it's like a hobby, that's like fine. And that's, like much easier for you to like produce the book. But if you want to sell a lot of books, it's like a business.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And again, so then it's almost like its own small business where
Yeah.
I coach entrepreneurs and people sometimes don't realize they're entrepreneurs like this, right?
Yes.
They don't realize that they're suddenly need to have a sales team and a marketing team and
Yes.
and a operations team and a production.
Well, and I think it's also about like, okay, you might not have to have a whole marketing team, but you do have to know how to do marketing. What should you be doing? What are the activities that can drive awareness? What is the right next step? What is, and I think that that's also one place that authors really forget or don't know that they have to be so intentional about their actions,
Right.
you know?
Right. So I'm getting that your person, your ideal client,
Mm.
is someone who is not just writing for hobby, but
Yeah.
writing to
Yes.
sell, and am I right? The Holy Grail is New York Times bestsellers list.
Depends what you want. So this is so funny that you asked that. I think as coming from publishing, and having worked on New York Times bestsellers, I think it's definitely one of like the most like requested things that people ask about, or like that's when I say like, what's your goal? They say, I want to be a New York Times bestseller. And it's kind of like the formula to get on the bestsellers is not an unknown. It's like, it's that a lot of things need to be working together. And there's a lot of strategy and planning. It's like nobody just like pops onto the New York
Yeah.
Times bestseller list.
Yeah.
So much work is put in on the back end. But also, it really depends what your goals are. Like, are you trying to book more speaking? Are you trying to add clients to your business? Do you want to write a series of kids books? Like, kind of what are your specific goals? Because the New York Times is also like, people love it because it feels like so well known, but
Yeah.
just because you're on the list once doesn't mean that your book continues to sell really well. Whereas some other goals or strategies can help you have more consistent sales.
Oh, interesting. So you could net more money other ways.
Yes.
Got it.
Because and that's if you're on the New York Times bestseller for 1 week, that's kind of like cool, and you can say that, but doesn't mean that the next week you're still selling as many books. Right? But if you maybe have a different goal with a different strategy, you could be selling like, a more steady amount over more weeks to help you earn out, and then to help you have more consistent sales. Like, so it just depends on what you want. Do you want that like big name bestseller?
Yes. Welcome, Cleo, Women About Finance. I see a book coming from you, Cleo. So I'm glad you're tuning in to find out the tips on how to sell more, how to earn more with your book, which, like we've been saying, is a little bit, to me, behind the curtain of the of becoming a published author. I think a lot of us in coaching spaces do think about, it'd be nice to, well, here's what I've heard. In short form is when you write a book, you can say author behind your name, and then you get to be a speaker because you've written something. There's like a body of work that you get to, I don't know, almost like roll off of for your street cred.
So let's like talk it out, right? Okay, so you can you definitely can say author, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that much if you can also self-publish your book, right? I mean,
I think a lot of coaches are self-publishing, so that's where if it's not about sales. I mean, I think that's part of it, right?
So I do think self-publishing has changed over the last 3 or 5 years, where it feels like it is a little bit more like legitimized. There's more ways to make your book feel more professional and all that.
They no longer look like they came out of a Kinko's.
Right. Right. But then why, like, so for instance, like, why does a coach think that they need a book to get speaking engagements? Can't they just say, I'm a coach, I've like coached 50, 100 to 500 women, whatever? Like, I guess what do you think that reason
Why is that the way?
Yeah,
I think people think it's like this tangible, like I climbed this mountain. I had the commitment and the content to create this object.
So many thoughts about this. Writing a book
Thank you.
is not easy. So it definitely takes like time and energy, and you're spending a lot of money. But then I also think too, if you're kind of going that route with like a vanity publisher, so they help you do the cover, they help you lay out the pages, they help you maybe find an editor, they help you maybe upload it and do some like Amazon keyword SEO metadata stuff, right? If you do that, it's still like $10,000, right?
Cool.
Or okay, so many of
Yeah.
the good ones, I think,
Yeah.
of a book that's like an adult business book
Yes. Right.
are like around that price.
That's great to know. I've never even
And
heard that term vanity publisher, but it
yeah,
totally makes sense.
right? Because they're helping your work look better. Okay, so then you do that. But for
It's
me,
like a
it's
big packaging project.
it is because I'm sure that they use like the same, designers, and some of them look really good. And there's lots of different like hybrid models now that are coming out, but it's basically a vanity publisher. And if you do that, that's fine. But then like the thing is you still have to do the work to get the speaking engagement. It's not like you can just say to like a huge
Like
conference,
here.
oh, hi, I'm Stephanie, I wrote a book here, now can I be the keynote? Like I think those two things are so disconnected almost. It's like you could, yes, you can say in your bio author, and you can send them the book so they can see what your work is like and your voice is like, but that's still not your pitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, your pitch is not, hey, I wrote a book about coaching women to start their business. It's
Right.
like that's like one piece. So it's like you still have to do the work of finding the conference, seeing who the organizer is, what do they want, what does
So
their audience want.
this is what it seems like the through line is there's no way around marketing. There's no like circumventing selling yourself in some way,
No,
marketing your message.
no. And I think that I do see a lot of coaches in the like coaching space want to write a book, but then I think because, and also what I've experienced like talking to people, it's like people spend a lot of time writing, again, same as like in traditional publishing, and then they also feel like, oh my gosh, I spent more money than I thought I would, because I think they don't think it ends up costing 10K, that then they feel too tired and burnt out to market their book, so they're kind of like, it's out there, and then just
Mm-hmm.
they don't do
But
much.
this
And
is
it's
a
like
mindset thing
so crazy.
though. This analogy is, I know, kind of tired and patriarchal, but wedding versus marriage. Like you put so much into like the start. It's like you don't realize it's just the starting line. When the real work is really like making it happen. So I mean, you can say like business plan versus implementation too. Like you can like think it all through and make this great
Yes.
launch or whatever, and then you're like, okay, now what, right? Like so
Yes.
then that there is another, in some ways, even more challenging non-sprint marathon, right? Even
Yes.
is
Because
is the head trip, you know? It's,
it's like, oh, I think also people forget, like, even if your book, especially if you self-publish the book, even if your book is like a year old, you can still talk about it. I mean, you don't have to talk
yeah,
about it every day like when you were launching it, but
right.
just like, oh, you can talk about it once in a while. You can say like, in my book I wrote a chapter, I told a story, I have a worksheet, I have a whatever.
Yeah.
But I think people then kind of like forget about it. So I've also worked with women who I guess I would call in the coaching space, and they've written like 2 or 3 books, and then it's hard for them to like pause and then try to do all the marketing work to make it feel like they've done the book um right, kind of, because they always, like, I've talked to many people who are like, oh, I
They're
did my,
always thinking of the next one. Is that
yes, they're always like, I did my first book such a disservice because I like wrote it and then I like had to get on to the second one. And I'm like, did you have to get on to the second one? You could have just written the second one and had it. Like if you needed to write it at that time in your life or business or whatever, but you can still spread them out. There's no saying like you're gonna earn more money the quicker you put them out, because you're only gonna do that if you're selling books, I guess.
Yes, thank you.
It's
These are
like,
all myths that I've, sort of overheard in this as a business person watching. Like I started to say, I've sold a lot of books, and because I'm in Oakland, there's a lot of local authors and
yeah,
really badass, awesome people that came through the shop, and I sold their stuff, and they were customers, and all of them were like in this swim and trying to kind of, yeah, get through these same personal challenges of having to sell themselves. It's a little like what we started to talk about in the beginning, where you're like good at one thing and then suddenly you're a manager. You're good at like whatever you're talking about, and then suddenly you're selling, also marketing, and yeah, it's
which is so different, right? So it's exactly that. So being like a writer is looking inward, right? It's like telling your story, sharing what you've learned, sharing your framework, you know, whatever it is. But then marketing is looking outward, and so it's two very different things. And I find that people in general have a hard time switching between the two, and then also just knowing that you have to do it. Like the beginning of the publishing process is about writing, and then the end of the publishing process is about marketing. But I think a lot of people or authors like don't want to do that part because it feels so uncomfortable for them.
Mm-hmm. Right. So in some ways, the service you bring is almost like, at least I'm going to tell you that the process is this, not just this, right? Like, so get your mind around this whole thing.
Yes.
And not just like this little one step at a time.
Yes.
As though the finish line is closing the book.
Right. And I also think it's about I feel like I spend a lot of time educating authors on like marketing is a long process, long, like way off the screen. It's not just like writing is, right? So it's more like marketing is not one big event. It's not like a cover design, right? That's like you work on it and then it's done.
Yeah.
Like lots of little things adding up to like build momentum.
Yeah,
and
momentum.
You can't really stop doing it because you'll lose the momentum, right? And you need to just do it earlier than you think, you know. So like an example I give a lot is, for instance, and you will probably actually really relate to this since you had a store. If you want to have a book signing at a bookstore, you can't just like go into your local bookstore and be like, hey, I'm a local author, can you have an event with me? They're gonna be like, I don't know who you are, like I don't have time for this, like who are you, whatever. Because they don't know you, they don't know what your book is about, they don't know who you are, they don't know what you can kind of bring to the table. There's no relationship built there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so then when I tell people, like, if you want to have a book signing at a bookstore, that's fine. And people, they do that. But you have to go in, you have to get to know the bookseller, you have to get to know the book owner, you have to see what their events are like. Do you want to have an event like this? Like they normally have, because already having the event is like a huge ask. You have to move all your furniture, have extra people, get extra books, maybe have refreshments.
They can't do it on a dime. They can't do it every day.
Right.
It has to be only the top 10 people that make the request and the top 10 return on investment, right?
Right. And then what the bookstore is going to want from you is, who are you bringing to the event? Because even though we have our own marketing, own email list, like we market to them all the time. So who new are you bringing? Like how many new people can you bring into our store? Because we're extending this effort to hold the event, do all the logistics. Like who are you bringing that can buy more books, you know? And then an author's like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, like they're not just going to say, yeah, of course you live like 30 minutes away, we'll just of course have a book signing for you. And even that idea is like, whoa, I didn't know that.
Yes. Well, it's great. It is so good that you're bringing the bigger perspective, and it's also just more people who, I mean, so here's what my business coaching belief is, that this idea of marketing, whatever we are saying about ourselves, is a literal exercise in self-belief and self-love. so yeah, I love sort of bringing people through that mind shift from I don't want to be visible to what are we here for, man? Like bring it. You want to offer this product or service, you want to offer it to more people and the right people, and you got to tell people how you can serve them, and
you got to tell people. And so it's also, you know, I say this a lot too, like as an author, you're your best salesperson. Like no one no one else in this
No
whole
one.
world is going to care more about your book and selling your book than you. So if you cannot even muster up the energy or time or like anything like a plan to market your book, no one's going to want to market it. Like if you do not
Yeah.
feel 110% excited for your book or this event or whatever, nobody, that's going to be so clear and apparent that nobody else is going to want to do it either. So like remembering that, and this is the same for business, like you're your best salesperson. If you don't love the services you're offering, no one else will,
Yeah.
or they'll think like, why should I love it? She like obviously does not even.
Yeah. Why does she seem so embarrassed about talking about
Yes.
her product or her process or
Yeah.
her how her mind works or any of that?
Right. And
'Cause, yeah.
so I think that's like a huge one too, that people, that authors are like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, even though yes, your editor cares about your book, your agent cares about your book, like, yes, but like you're really, you know, your book is like your baby. Your book is like your thing. You are the one that has worked on it from idea all the way through to now getting it published.
Yes. And this is, I think of like going to, I love art museums. I think of like, I'm the person that wants to hear the whole guide and read
Mm-hmm.
all the words on the wall. Like, it's really about creative process to me more than just like what this little snapshot of a picture looks like. It's so much more about the, like, how did you, what were you thinking? What were you intending?
Right.
Which is all right. It's all in
Yeah.
the author. It's
Yes.
not about like, I don't know, just look at the book. Like, no, it's not just
Because
that. Yeah.
people want to know like who's behind the book, what inspired you, what's the like story, who are you, um and like why should they want to read your book? Like a million books are published a year, why should they want to read yours?
Which back to like why I love talking about marketing your business, because it is like, oh right, it is about me. Like it turns out it isn't just my capitalistic output. It's about me and my story and like going after the thing, creating the life that I want by offering the thing that I want to offer.
Yeah.
And it's, much more than that, but in terms of like work, this is
Yeah.
the part where there's an exchange of value for this thing, this actually you that you became,
Yep.
as opposed to just the widget you threw out into the world.
Yeah, it's, that idea of like self-promotion and talking about yourself is like a I help authors a lot work through that like process of like how they can go from being uncomfortable to comfortable doing it.
Mm-hmm, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it really is just the mind shift. So sorry, I love chatting with you,
I
Stephanie.
know, it's so interesting. I like can't wait to hear more about your store.
Oh
In like
yeah.
in our like yeah.
Yes, when we chat later. The store was a beautiful chapter. I learned so much and like I can think of so many things. And I loved the book part. So this is part of why I was really excited to
Yeah.
learn more about what you do. And why I have so many questions for you.
Because you've seen it on the retail side.
I've seen it on retail and from the author's side. And yeah, it's been really fascinating. So speaking of how you've worked with clients, what is your greatest joy in your business?
Yeah, I think definitely seeing an author like transform or go from like not like knowing they have to market like but don't exactly know what to do, feel very unclear, to like, oh, seeing what to do and why it's important, and then like going on a path to being like, oh, okay, I get it. Like it's still a ton of work, but I know why I'm doing this. I know what the process is, and I also know like really what's going to be the result after this, like because I'm going to sell more books, more people are going to know about me, I can be on more podcasts, I can be in more media, I can have better speaking engagements.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think having the goal in mind is so
Right.
important.
Yeah.
And even I think you and I both help people realize what's possible, right?
Yeah.
Because it's I find that I'm like No, stretch the goal, stretch the goal. Like
Yeah.
that's what I often say. Like, don't you know if you do this, it's possible you'll get all the way there.
Yes, yes, yes.
Exciting, right?
I love
To
that.
watch that light up, the connections.
Yeah.
So, what's one business challenge that you're struggling with right now?
Good question. I think like any kind of business, it's just creating a sustainable, I think, process for like leads who you are excited to work with and
Mm-hmm.
like want to work with, and who are like actually like a good fit for like what you do.
Yes. So, what's your process right now for getting the leads?
Yeah. So a lot of my leads are personal referral, like
Nice.
number one, and also um definitely being more active and showing up in more places. So this year, I've actually done a lot more speaking engagements to like writers groups and different like writers conferences. And I didn't think I would like it, but I actually really like it. Like the teaching aspect is so fun because it feels like, oh, I'm able to kind of show you what I know, which feels so like easy for me, you know, because it doesn't feel behind the curtain for me, you know, because it's like, okay,
Right.
that's
Right.
like what
It's
I did.
obvious to you.
Um,
Nice.
so sharing that and then telling people like this is what it's really like, and this is what you think it's gonna be like, you know, and so I've really enjoyed speaking. What was the question? I don't even know why.
Oh, just yeah. What's your system right now
Oh, oh,
for
oh,
getting leads? Is speaking in person events? It
yeah.
sounds like speaking in
Um,
person.
not in person, mostly like still
Mm,
virtual. And then
yeah,
like for instance, I think the teaching part has been really great. Like so in November I have like a series of mini workshops where it's like
I
short,
saw
it's like
that.
15 to 30 minutes, so really short. Not like a long commercial. I mean, I definitely pitch people because it's like I have a business, but it's like at the end. But it's really to kind of help people like go through the journey, you know, like no, like this is how you can start. Or if you want to get on podcasts, like this is what you can do. Like there's no kind of substitute for doing the work, but you can also do it smarter, you know, like
Mhm.
I think a lot of people, especially when they think about like media, they're like, oh, I'm just gonna pitch myself to like Today Show, and they're gonna like um not hire me, but like secure me or whatever. Like
Yeah,
I'm like,
right.
you gotta kind of
Invite me
start.
on the couch.
You gotta like start small, you know, and until you also build up your confidence. Um, and so I think those mini workshops are just like great for me to kind of share a lot of knowledge and then see like this is what it's like to work with me. And
Right.
so I found those are really helpful as well.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice. So then, does it feel like you're gonna get the leads that you want from this system?
I think so. Because I think that the people who come to the workshop and who sign up are really more serious about it. Because marketing your book is not like I said, it's not like a one-time thing. You don't just do it and you're done. You know, so
Right.
it's kind of like people who are ready and know that they have to like put in the effort to then get the benefit of like selling your book, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
So then, it sounds like you're clear about the qualifiers. What qualifies people to work with you?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be willing, even more, like I used to think it was like, oh, I have to define myself between like traditional and self-publishing. And it's like, that hung me up for like a long time, but it's not. And I'm also going to say something that people don't think about. It's kind of like, oh, both types of authors have to do marketing and sales, right? Or promotion. But more so a self-published author does, like 100 times more, because again, literally you're the only person doing it unless you have a team or you've hired somebody. But otherwise nobody is selling your book for you, nobody is marketing your book for you, nobody is like creating any like assets for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of at least with the traditional publisher, there are people doing those things. They have a sales team that like goes to stores, has
That
relationships, you know.
showroom that I told you I used to go to.
Yes.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, there's like tons of stuff that happens on the back end of a traditional publisher that people, you know, maybe don't really talk about, you know? So it's like even getting your book listed on Amazon. Like if you don't do that as a self-published author, nobody's going to. And like at a publisher, people are kind of like optimizing for metadata, search it. There's so much stuff they do. So as a self-published author, like if you want to sell your book, like you gotta do the marketing. You're it, you know, and
So you are working with self-publishing?
I am.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I definitely, yeah. Yeah.
Because in some ways, there's more opportunity for you as that coach, right? There's more
Yeah.
need,
Yes.
more gap that they
There,
need to
but I
fill.
think it's for me also finding or the authors that are ready to do the work to find me. Because I do think I have run into a lot of authors who just feel tired
Yeah.
after the process. I mean, it's like a creative process. It's very different. You're like learning how to all these parts of like a publishing business, because if you're self-publishing, also like you're in charge. So it's kind of like
You're
writing
wearing
a
all the
book.
hats too, right?
Writing a book is like remodeling a house, right? If you, as a self-published author, you're like your own GC. You're talking to every designer. You're talking
Right.
to every builder. You're like making like choices on all of this stuff that you probably don't know much about, right? Like you don't know like what kind of covers look best, what kind of paperweight is best, what are other books in the genre look like? You know, there's so much stuff that you're learning for the first time that you also spend a lot of like mental energy doing this part that is not also writing.
Right. So thank you. I can really see why you would be hung up on this, which path, traditional versus self, because they are really different clients, it seems like. But what they need and what you need to give them
Provide, yeah,
is quite different. So do you find you enjoy one or the other more? Because yeah, I can just imagine it's a totally different conversation.
I don't think I enjoy one or the other more. I think I really like working with people who are ready to try things out. So I find that I've also worked really well with people who either in their like current career or past life have done sales or marketing, because they know that they have to do it, or they've tried to do it for their own business before, but then they also realize like, oh, there's actually more strategy involved than just like doing a bunch of stuff. Because I think sometimes in any marketing, it feels like you could, if you just do enough stuff, it'll build the momentum. But it's really also like you got to do the strategic stuff to build the momentum in the right way, you know?
Right.
Because I also think too, you know, back to kind of like that Today Show example, authors are like, I really want to be on the Today Show. Or before, when Oprah had a magazine, I really want to be an O mag. And it's like, okay, that's totally fine. That I see why that you want that to be your goal, but like also, are you ready for that? Because it's kind of like, if you're doing all this work to get onto like really big name media, do you look legitimate online? Do you have like a funnel? You know, I mean, I kind of hate the word, but it's true. Do you have like a funnel to like capture people and show them more about you? Are you easy to find? There's all these questions, because people only think about like the top part. They only think about, oh, I want to be in O magazine. I want like Reese Witherspoon to pick me. I want, you know, New York Times bestseller. But it's like, are you supporting it down so then people can actually then buy your book?
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, like I said, I am often working with clients who are almost like dreaming too small, and I sort of love the big dream of the Today Show couch and OMAG and all of that. But it's really like again like a exercise in some ways of like, who do I get to be? Do I get to be here? Do I, like I say often in my messaging, it's safe to be me. You know, I get to be all the way here because I want that big thing. And it's not just for those other people. It is for me too.
Yeah.
I can be there. And it doesn't mean, it's not really about the thing. It's really for me about permission to make yourself big, which
be as big as you want.
Be as big as you want. And big meaning truly you, whatever that is.
Right.
Which it's almost an hour up, but we were talking about being women of color and Asian American women of color and how that is to be in our entrepreneur space.
Yeah.
And I will say that I've been told with words and without words to be less me, to
Oh,
to perform whiteness is one way that I say it, is don't stick out. Just pretend, be cool, you know, just pretend you're like everybody else. When I'm saying
yeah.
your marketing juice, and this is back to the artist statement, right? About the book is almost only as interesting as like your story about how this book happened
Yeah.
from you.
Yeah.
And all of that is about us all being all the way here.
It's so interesting you say that. Somebody told me this like phrase or like old, not old wives' tale, but have you heard like in different Asian cultures they say like the loudest duck gets shot, the tallest bamboo gets
Tallest
cut.
poppy is cut off the
Oh
top.
yeah, and then the other one was like the highest nail gets like hammered down, and it's like
Yes.
before I heard it probably like a couple of months ago. I'd never heard it before, and I was like, oh yeah, like just it makes so much sense, and that's like what people are taught.
Yeah.
From many Asian perspectives, so they don't want to talk about themselves, you know, like this is kind of on a tangent, but for instance, like you know, there's so much talk about like diversity in publishing, right? And there's not that many Asian American
No.
authors, and
No.
also it's because to be a good author, to sell a lot of books, you have to talk about yourself. You have to talk about your story. You have to talk about all this cool shit you did. But then that feels so unnatural and so like out of the box, like so like people just want
Some kind of cringy. Like you can
to
imagine your auntie watching and silently shaming you.
yeah, and you're like told to like shrink down. And so then they're not able to, or they don't sell as many books.
Yeah.
Then
Yep. Yep.
you know, it like keeps it like going around in like a circle. They don't sell that many books, so then they don't get another book deal. Or
Right.
you know, anybody that they talk to, they're just like, oh, it was like the process was so hard. I had to like self promote. I had to talk about myself.
Bring them to me. I want them to get large. I will work with them
Right.
to work on that mindset and energy piece, because it really starts in those beliefs,
Yeah.
limiting beliefs.
So anyway.
Thank you so much
Yes.
for letting us into what is
Yeah.
obvious to you and is easy for you. And this is what I love in entrepreneurs, when people get to just like offer in a sort of easy skate kind of way, like in your flow of offering what you know, and what you know will help the people.
Yeah. Love it. Thank you so much for having
Love
me.
it. How would you like people to get in touch with you? What's the best way for working with you?
Yeah, follow me here on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok. It's very fun there.
Yeah.
My website is stephmoonco.com.
And the workshops maybe would be a great call to action right now, right? When's the first one coming up?
The first one was last week. So there's one this Thursday, and then next week there's one Tuesday and Thursday. And they're like 15 to 30 minutes. The link to sign up is in my bio, or send me a DM and I can send it to you. The topic this week is how to stop overthinking and show up on your platform.
Woo! Love that.
Yeah.
Love
so
that, because again, that's also like making myself small, and you know, the overthinking, right, is the fears talking.
So much overthinking. And then like I'm gonna have a great Black Friday sale, like promotion, I guess is like a better word. So really excited about that. But yeah, just I think since you're on Instagram, this is like a great place to follow and like reach out.
Nice. Thanks so much. Everyone follow Stephanie Moon, Steph Moon Co. here and on TikTok. And thanks everyone for joining us. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Bye, May.